Welcome to Get Intentional with Mary. This podcast is for the busy woman who appreciates working hard and also playing hard. This show will focus on lifestyle, entrepreneurship, wellness, amazing interviews, and what every woman needs to live a successful and fulfilled life. Be sure to subscribe, share with friends, and leave a review. Now let's get on with today's topic. Joy Langley, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so honored and grateful to have you join the Get Intentional with Mary podcast. We are going to have a wonderful conversation. So, for those of you who don't understand therapy, who've never been to therapy, I'm bringing Miss Joy Langley to you because she is a therapist. And whenever I hear this amazing lady speak, she inspires me and she makes me always want to dig a little bit deeper into my own self. So, Joy, would you please introduce yourself in your own words to everyone?
Yeah, well, Mary, thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast today. And what a great introduction. Yes, I definitely have a therapeutic background. I've done it for a good 15 years, but I'm moving towards being a coach more than anything now. And that's so that I can reach people on a wider level. So doing the actual coaching work is not necessarily working with people that have clinical problems anymore, but I use all those skills to still, as you said, Mary, when we talk, I do dig a little bit deeper, not deliberately, just because I'm used to asking those kinds of questions.
Mhm.
So I work as a stress management coach now, and I focus on helping business owners to embrace the concept that their mind has to work well. Your mind has to function properly. And once that is functioning properly, then your business works too. Because to me, I think it seems a bit like I don't know how people forget that their mind is in charge and then the business comes second. Without the mind working properly, on a bad day, if you catch me on a bad day, Mary, I'm no good to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seriously, not even my business.
I'm the same way. And for me, I love that you're going from therapy to coaching because it blends the two worlds beautifully. And I believe that we need both. So for you to have the expertise as a therapist and then to bring all of that knowledge into developing a better future for your clients, it's invaluable. And there's a huge mindset component to everything that we do, as we know. And the same happens with me. If I'm not feeling well, if I'm not in the right mindset, nothing is going to get done. I'm not going to want to talk to clients or show up for my people at the gym because I teach classes at the gym. But it's all about reframing that. And to me, that is something that every person needs to understand is how to reframe. But before we get into all of that, I would love to know how it is that you became who you are today and why therapy.
Yeah, why therapy? That's a good question, Mary, because I didn't set out as being a therapist at all. I'm just an ordinary Joanna, on the block. I came through as a teenager, quite bright, quite cheerful. I did chemistry and business as a degree. God knows why I chose that. Then I went out into the world of work and I couldn't find what I wanted. But it was also a case of I didn't know what I wanted. So I kind of hated that question that your relatives always ask you, and your friends and your teachers ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up, Joy? So I don't know. I used to say, I just want to be happy.
Mhm.
Apparently that wasn't good enough, but I just want to be happy. And I still have that as one of my main ambitions. But I was told I had to like look a bit, a bit bigger, a bit wider. So I thought, okay, I'll become some kind of an executive and work on I just didn't know. I just didn't know, Mary. So I ended up becoming a personal assistant and went through record companies, IT companies, you name it. And I realized that I got depressed because I no longer had a clear goal. As a student, I had a clear goal. Study this, Joy, shine, be amazing. I could do it. And then I was pushed out into the world of work, and it's a big world. And I just didn't feel special, important. I didn't know where I stood, and I was lost. But I had to apparently work. So I found lots of different jobs. I spent about a year and a bit in each of them. So I wanted to make my CV look good. I didn't want to be that person that arrived today and left at the end of the week, because sometimes I really felt like leaving at the end of the week because I just couldn't, there was no depth to what the companies were doing. I didn't feel as though I had a place. Um, Talk about being a cog in a very, very large machine. But I think if you're going to fit into a machine, you need to know how the other parts work and what your value is. And I never really felt valuable or useful.
Mm.
So I remember working for a marketing company and really wanting to just leave. We're doing the person I was working for was doing campaigns for dog foods, and I thought, really, really, and I was working late. I was being asked to come in late. All these unspoken rules about coming in late, and arriving really early. I thought, really, dog food again. And I
Mm.
just felt like becoming a nun. I thought I've got to go away and do something really useful with my life where I feel
Mhm.
valuable. So I did eventually do things that I liked. And because I got depressed during all those periods, I realized my depression wasn't really because I was a depressed person. I'm a very happy, bubbly person, but I wasn't doing anything that was making my heart sing. So
Mm.
got into the music business with an ex-partner, and I was never depressed. Doing things I loved. I was meeting people. I actually met Beyonce when she was in Destiny's Child. She came over to London. So we're talking a long, long time ago. And that was just such an exciting time for me. And at that point in my life, I was towards my late 30s, I suppose. And I said, I'm never going to do anything else in life unless I enjoy it, which is a big ask, isn't it? But
Yes.
I knew that because my depression was so debilitating, it took me to dark places, and people don't like to talk about suicide and wanting to take their own lives. But I will confess, I felt like that.
Mm. Mhm.
But once I found something that made my heart sing and I felt useful, those thoughts never really crossed my mind. So perhaps depression as an emotion tells you that you're not doing something that you like. Just simple
Mm.
as that. And once you start doing something that you like, the depression just lifts like a cloud. So I found that out about me, and I just dedicated myself to doing things that I like. So the therapy work, falling into that, was because I'd come to the end of a long relationship. I'd been with an ex-partner for 15 years. I had a son with him as well. And we broke up, and I just didn't know who I was. And when you have all these different identities that you assume, you're a mum, you're a daughter, you're just a best friend, who are you? And I used to say, well, the original Joy Langley, please step forward.
Mm.
And sometimes I couldn't find her. So the therapy was about initially just learning a very, very simple short course on, learning about yourself. I thought, yeah, I need that. So I did that for a couple of months, and they said, oh, come back and do some more training. I thought, what do you mean more training? And then I realized that there's this long pathway where I could become a therapist. So I didn't set out to be a therapist, Mary.
Mm.
I ended up being one.
Wow. Joy, you said so many things that have me thinking, and the impact of everything from, I mean, I get, my hands are getting a little sweaty right now because I feel a certain way about everything that you said. Okay. And from the fact that your identity was shaped by those around you, how the depression that you felt, I mean, this is huge. This is huge. And I want to emphasize this a little bit because there are so many people who are walking around unhappy and depressed, but they don't realize that they're doing the wrong thing. If all they have to do is find something that brings them joy, everything changes, as opposed to being constantly medicated and still being in the same environment and doing the same thing day in and day out. But for you, like, that level of self-awareness is massive. And I believe that we say self-awareness a lot, and it's almost like a cliche now because everybody hears it. It's all over social media. But what does it really mean? It means understanding who you are, what you don't like, and what brings you joy, so that you don't have to go day in and day out doing the same thing over and over that will bring you to the same state of emotion. So, can you talk a little bit, expand a little bit more on that? Because I believe that it's important and extremely beneficial to share.
Yes, of course, Mary. And you're right. This word awareness, it is everywhere, and everyone's sort of thinking, how do I achieve this awareness? I think we're pretty aware. You only have to look at a child. They are very much aware of their surroundings. They're very much aware of what they should say and what they shouldn't say, because a kid is just responding to their world, which is actually full of grown-ups who are much taller than them. We look like giants. When I was younger, Mary, I used to watch this film called, well, a series called Land of the Giants. Always made me laugh because to us, we are the giants, and the children, they feel like the little minions. But they know how to please us. They know what makes us angry, what makes us sad, what makes us happy. And we just respond to our world. So I think awareness is not something that you have to suddenly acquire magically. It's something you've always had. Otherwise, you wouldn't have got this far in the world. So perhaps it's just reminding people that you don't have to find some magical unicorn and dance on the top of a mountain under when you just don't have to do anything magical. You already are very much aware. You wake up in the morning, you're aware that you've woken up. You go and brush your teeth, you're aware of it. What we are very good at doing now, Mary, is turning everything off so it's on automatic and autopilot. So I will wake up in the morning, but am I paying attention to the fact that I've woken up and I'm stumbling around with my eyes half closed? Yeah, I go into the bathroom, brushing my teeth. Am I thinking about brushing my teeth? No, I'm thinking about something else. I'm thinking about what I'm going to have for breakfast. So wherever we are, we're never thinking about that moment. So this word mindfulness is huge, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What
It
is
is.
what is mindfulness?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you don't, I mean, let's face it, if you're at the top of the staircase, you're about to walk down, Mary, you're going to be mindful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
You're
And
going to be mindful. So what does it mean? It means taking care to notice what's around you. And we do that. So awareness is a big thing. Obviously, you're quite right. When you enter the world of therapy, and if I'm with a client and talking on that particular level, I'm asking them really, who are you, and who do you think you are? And beginning, I suppose, to strip it back to its basics. Let's imagine that you're nothing, ground zero. What qualities do you see in yourself, or what qualities would you like to have? So, on a very basic level, I can get you to begin to think about who you are, what you like about yourself, what you don't like, and almost reconstructing yourself. And I'm a big fan of television, as you can see. So you might be too young, Mary, to remember I think it was called the $6 Million Man.
yes, I remember.
Oh, great. Good, good, good. Okay, so this guy, I think he was called Steve, was rebuilt as a bit robotic, a bit human. But really, he had to work out who he was again. And that's where we're at. Therapy is not it's not something to be frightened of. It's something where you decide, I want to work out who I am, just so that you can then move forward and this bigger ambition, be the best that you can be, meet your full potential, give the world everything that you've got before you fall off this mortal coil and
Yeah.
you are no more and you're something else. It depends on
Mm-hmm.
what you believe in. But therapy is about learning about yourself, and other people can help you to do that, whether then even if they're not a therapist. Your best friend can help you to learn about yourself. A child can help you to learn
Yeah.
about yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why I love children. They're just you, they think they're learning stuff from you, but you know what? I'm learning things from them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that brings me to the topic of emotional intelligence and how we're cultivating that in this generation, hopefully, and as we bring kids up. So tell us what your take is on emotional intelligence.
Yeah. I mean, initially, Mary, when I heard the word emotion and then intelligence put together, it made me really angry. One of these angry people, because I don't like being tested. I don't like the idea of an IQ test. I don't like the idea of any kind of test of me, because then I have to suddenly prove myself. So I think I've been a very angry person, but also a very compliant person, because I've jumped through the hoops. I've got my qualifications. I've done everything that I need to do to make somebody else believe that I am good enough. So I was anti the word, but I'm softening to the word. I get it. Um, do you understand how you are in the world when it comes to your emotions, your feelings? Do you understand how you are in the world when it comes to being around other people and their feelings and their emotions? And we use the word emotions and feelings, Mary. Uh, we've merged the two words, but they are really separate.
Mm.
Emotions are some basic things that happen inside of us, and we have our gut. We talk about our gut instincts, and I can feel that in my gut. Really, the emotions are generated down there where we have so many nerve endings, and it's telling us, in a way, what's going on inside our body. So if me and you were to sit down and design a body right now, Mary, we'd say, goodness me, Mary, what can we do to it? How can we let it know when it's happy? How can we let it know when it's sad? How can we let it know when there's a surprise happening? We'd say, okay, let's have these little antennae, and they pick up on the vibes that are going on, and then they pass it to the brain, and the brain then works it out. So the brain does actually work out what these emotions are, and we then interpret it with other words depending on how we've been brought up, depending on the experiences that we've had. We are going to reshape that feeling because we're always interpreting things, Mary. We're just a walking computer that's interpreting the world around us. If me and you heard a big loud noise right now, you might have a certain interpretation. I might have a different one now. Sometimes I know it's noisy in my other room. So if I heard a loud noise, I might think nothing of it, Mary. Whereas you might have just jumped off this call and you're out of the room and I'm sat here just staring at the screen thinking, where the hell is Mary? Because you live in a place where it's quiet, things don't happen that go wrong. It's big.
Yeah.
So that's why an event can happen to me and to you, and we can perceive it or interpret it in a very, very different way. So I know that that's the connection between an emotion happening and then a feeling is then kind of linked into what we end up doing because we're linking it to a lot of our experiences.
So do you feel that, I know that emotional intelligence is a term. How about emotional awareness? And even taking it a little deeper from there, because we're aware of our emotions, and then how do we act on those emotions once we understand what it is that we are feeling? And something that you said is crucial here too, because that gut that we have, it's actually our second brain. And people don't know, some people may not be aware, I should say, that there are so many nerves in our gut, and they're connected directly to our brain. So sometimes we end up feeling something in our gut before it manifests in our mind. And this is something that I'm getting to learn myself. And this is why sometimes you say trust your gut, because your gut knows better. And I don't know what it is. Maybe there's a different level of awareness that already exists in our gut, in our intuition, that we sometimes go against, and it ends up being detrimental to us. And sometimes we go with our gut feeling in a way that guides us, even if our minds don't understand, and we end up making the right decision. And we're like, where did this come from? Well, we listen to our gut, we listen to our intuition. How do we navigate that self doubt because you don't trust your gut?
Yeah, learning to trust ourselves is one of the biggest gifts that we can give ourselves. As a child, a young child, 1 year old, 2 year old, 3 year old, we don't have any misconceptions about who we are. We just are. And as children, we also feel that everything around us is us, which is a strange thing to say, Mary. So if I were a 1 year old and I met you and I was unhappy, I would just think, I'm unhappy. Mary's unhappy too. If I were in a great place, I say, I'm in a great place. Mary's in a great place. And it goes on. I'm hungry. Mary must be hungry. Of course, it doesn't work out that way. It's not as simple as that. But children then start separating themselves and seeing that separateness. We obviously experience emotions, and with the emotional intelligence, beyond understanding ourselves and having an awareness of who we are and what makes our hearts sing, all that kind of stuff, we are not an island. So we actually interact with lots of other human beings. And guess what, Mary? They all have different ideas to what the world should be, which is a big shock. And it still kind of shocks me. And I remind clients when I talk to them, because we think everybody is the same as us. When we stand back and think, is that a logical thought that Mary's the same as me? It's like, no, she isn't. But yet, when I meet you, Mary, I will impose all of my opinions, my values, my views, everything on you. So if I'm a very polite person and you forget to leave the door open for me, I'll think she's a really rude person, whereas you might think, come from a culture where actually you opening the door for me might be insulting me. It might be saying, Joy, you're an old lady and I'm holding the door open for you so you can get, so there's all this interpretation that's going on. So emotional intelligence is about, do I understand me? And then do I have the ability to understand you? And this word empathy is thrown about a lot, but can I put myself in your shoes and imagine what you might be feeling? That's it. Do we really need to be taught this? Do we really need to be taught how to be kind to people?
Unfortunately, yes. And I believe that as children, we come into this world with a certain amount of joy. There's no prejudice, there's no real fear. That's all instilled on us from a very young age. Don't do this, don't do that. Oh, don't, you're gonna get hurt, you're gonna do this, So we hold ourselves back, and some of us end up holding ourselves back so much that we find ourselves maybe in our 40s or 50s or 60s wondering what could have been, or being so close-minded, or being so prejudiced or bigoted or whatever, so
Yeah.
fearful because of all the things, and we don't stop to think that we're living according to somebody else's upbringing, somebody else's perception.
And that's this thing that you just said, Mary, is a big thing, because I don't want you to feel bad about yourself or for your listeners to feel bad about themselves. The concept that I came across, which really blew my mind, was like second hand experiences. So you're right. We teach our children this, that, and the other, and they learn them and they just run with it. They don't question it. But we are not questioning perhaps some of the values or the behaviors that we were taught. You shouldn't feel bad about being who you are right now. But what you can do as an adult is begin to work out, are these my beliefs, my attitudes, or are they somebody else's? And when we catch ourselves sometimes doing things and we can hear a voice saying, don't do this, don't do that, or you should do this, or you should do that, sometimes it is the voice of someone from our past, someone that we valued and someone who we wanted to please. It's them. I know that my parents just wanted me to do well. So whenever I'm doing well, I get that kind of sense of, ooh, Joy, you've done well. I can hear it. And ooh, Joy, don't do that. And my mum's voice definitely rings in my head a lot of time around adventure. She was not a very adventurous person. I could be walking on a wall that was like, 3 inches off the ground, and I can hear her voice saying, Joy, be careful, you might fall off and break your neck. And as an adult, when I break that down, I think, really, is it possible to fall off a 3-inch high wall and break your neck? You might get a scraped arm, but you wouldn't break your neck, would you? But I didn't have the vocabulary to say it to her back then, and nor did I have the cheek to stand up to my mum and say, no, mum, you are so totally wrong. It's only 3 inches off the ground. That is not possible. I'd have been told off. So this compliance that we do to please the people around us and the conditioning that happens, don't be tough on yourself. Just recognize that I might have some secondhand experiences right now. And as an adult, perhaps I can challenge them. Perhaps I can renew them and refresh them and ditch the ones that I don't want, keep the ones that I want, and perhaps make some up of my own, make some new rules for myself. That's the therapy, Mary. That is the therapeutic work.
That's brilliant. Being the observer of what's happening and understanding that, am I acting and thinking in the way that I should be as me, is 100% me, or am I acting and thinking based on the perception of somebody else, or mom's voice, or dad's voice, or the critical friend, or whatever? And it's important to separate ourselves from that. It's such a journey.
It's lifelong, I would say,
Yeah.
because I'm still, even though I do this and I understand it, there's always something new to learn about me. There's always something which I've not faced up to. Lots of tough lessons, I think. Some of the things that I've discovered more recently about myself and what I don't say to myself. And obviously us both being, Black women on this call, it could equally well be anyone that's listening, white, Black, Asian, you name it, could be anyone. But really, lots of prejudices that I hold about being Black, which are crazy. Uh, but I've been brought up in the UK, and there's only a certain percentage of the population that's Black and that's white. We're classified as a minority. So that the feelings or someone telling me who I am starts from a very, very early age. And being classified as a minority, I mean, who wants to be brought into the world? And I always say, imagine the children coming out of a factory, and you stamp on their ass. Oh, this one's superior. Boom. This one's inferior. Boom. This one's a majority. Boom. This one's a minority. So this tag, as harmless as it sounds, has had a profound impact on me, Mary. And that's something that I'm still unraveling to this day. To this day.
Yeah. Yeah. Unbelievable. I mean, you're right, the labels
The labels.
and it goes beyond our race. It's about our bodies and our faces
Thank
and our
you.
personalities. Oh
Thank
no, my
you.
my my son is shy. Oh no, my daughter, she's so shy.
You're too
Or oh
tall,
yeah,
you're too short, you're too fat,
exactly.
you're too thin.
Mhm.
So this thing that we're trying to find is a perfect person. There is no perfect person, but we still strive towards this idea that there's this perfect person. So the therapy work is about letting go of the idea that there's a perfect person, because you are the perfect person, just as you are, Mary, just as you are, Joy. Now, if you can say that to yourself and feel let's say, the love that fills your heart. Because when I think about that phrase, you are perfect just the way you are,
Mhm.
doesn't it make you feel good?
It is. And for me, I'm a Christian, so I always say God doesn't make mistakes. Right. And we are made in his image. So if you see your abilities and your qualities and your personality as a gift, as a blessing, you're going to nurture it and take care of it. You see your body as a gift and as a blessing, you're going to nurture it and take care of it. You're going to exercise it, treat it well. You're not going to do things that are going to harm you. You're not going to do anything purposefully to harm yourself. So that's the way that I see it. But it takes a while too, because as women especially, we can be so critical of ourselves. We might say, I could be here sitting here and telling you, Joy, you look so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I love your blouse. I love the way you accessorize. And you
Oh,
could be like,
Mary,
oh no, I don't feel good. I'm not wearing makeup, or I put on too much makeup, or my makeup is. So it, we go right away into that. And it took me personally a long time to just say thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. As opposed to, oh no, I look terrible.
that's
I'm this,
that's
I'm
a
that.
really good exercise, Mary. In if someone compliments you, just saying thank you and not putting anything else before it, like, oh, you mean this old blouse? I've had it in the back of my wardrobe for quite some time, or ooh, I should have put on some more makeup today. If you can stop yourself from topping and tailing that sentence and just saying, as much as it sticks in your throat, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Mary.
Mhm.
Now that's hard, but when you start doing that, you'll realize that you're beginning to be kind to yourself. So it brings in this other big thing about compassion and self compassion, Mary, because we are kind to other people within reason. But the person that we forget to be kind to is us.
Yeah.
So compassion becomes a big thing, but compassion might be a big word, perhaps, which means too much to some people. But just say, be kind to yourself because you deserve it, because you're worth it, because you're valuable. All of these things, which when you really begin to take them on board, you can sometimes just burst out crying
Mm.
at,
Mm.
at the total acceptance of who you are
Yeah.
without judging yourself, without feeling bad about yourself. And that again is kind of the work of therapy, or again, just a nice friend. Friends can't do that for each other in that deep way, Mary, simply because we know too much about each other, and we're not prepared to go that far because it's quite personal.
Yes. Yes.
You
You
know,
know
I
what I
don't.
like to say? I like to say to my ladies, what would you say to 6-year-old you?
Yes,
Would you make, because you would make 6-year-old you cry if you were being so critical.
you
6-year-old,
wouldn't do it. You
yes,
just wouldn't do it.
no
And
way. So
I agree with you, Mary. That's a brilliant one. When I sit here doing my work and I can hear myself saying, "You should do this. You ought to do this. You must do this." And I think actually you would never say that to a 6-year-old kid. You just wouldn't say that, especially when they've done something and they've tried their best. You wouldn't say, "Oh, well, that's just not good enough. Go away," or tear it up in front of them. Would you really do that? You'd break it to them gently that, okay, well done. I'm glad you got that started. Here's some ways that you could improve it if you want to. Try it if you want to. But what you've done is great. Keep going. So being your biggest cheerleader.
yes.
I am the biggest cheerleader in my client's life, and I love it. It's a great role, because I just have to get my little pom poms out and go rah 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 and go, yeah, you're a wonderful Mary. Occasionally, I might say, well, Mary, you could do this, you could do that, but my job really is to build you up, Mary. It's to build you up because we live in a world where everybody is trying to tear us down. So my job at least is to make you feel that you are special, you're important, you're valid, your views matter. And that word that we said at the very beginning, Mary, you have to learn to trust yourself
Yeah.
and trust your own judgments.
Hmm.
That's where it's all gone a little bit wrong because we were talking about intuition and we were talking about the gut and all the nerve endings in the gut and why it's so important. And that's the seat of our emotions. We experience an emotion, and sometimes you can have hyphen motion, energy in motion.
Mm.
That always blows my mind, but it starts
Hmm.
there. And then it travels out the back of a nervous system called a polyvagal nerve, which ends up at the base of our brain, which is why you were right when you said that we have this connection between our gut and also our brain. The center that you missed out in between was the heart. I think we have three brains, Mary: the
Yes.
head, the heart, and the
Mhm.
gut. And if we can get those three to work together as perfectly as we can, then within reason, we're making good decisions.
Yes.
And the gut instinct is important because we do have this sense of like, oh, I shouldn't do that. Oh, I should do that. But don't always take that as your first port of call. Get your brain to engage as well. Let them have a chat together, and then they can come to some kind of mutual understanding. And if you chuck your heart in as well, you know, you're doing the best that you can at that point in time. What else can you do apart from me saying, I need to think like Mary, or I need to think like
Mhm.
somebody else, which is hard. But we spend a lot of time doing that. So when you come back to being who you want to be, who you are, whether the world doesn't accept it or not, you can be at peace and you
Yes.
can find a sense of calm, which nobody else can give you.
Oh, I love that. The peace, that protecting the peace, arriving at that place, understanding yourself, your emotions, understanding other people's emotions, and protecting our peace. And knowing
Yes.
too that we have to honor our gut feeling, our heart, our mind. If we can find balance and harmony between all of that, then we've arrived.
Yes. And I think that sometimes we make it all sound very, very difficult. You have to go to university and get a PhD in your emotions. There's some course out there about all about Mary. There's a course out there that's all about joy. We do know who we are, but we've moved too far away from it. That's
Yeah.
all. Which is why when we, if you read a lot of books, Mary, this thing about coming back to yourself or finding yourself, um, you've always been there. You've just moved too far away from it. And perhaps you've put too many judgments on who you should be, who you have to be, who you ought to be. And I still do that to myself, Mary. As a businesswoman, you're a businesswoman. There's so many ideas around us about what we should be doing, what we ought to be doing. And that makes us feel inadequate. It makes me feel that I'm not enough. Whereas if I start out thinking, well, actually, I'm enough, and I'm just going to learn this little bit to add to what I know, then I maintain this really strong core, this really strong inner core and sense of self, just like the physical. And I hate exercise, Mary, but you love exercise. But the core, you talk about the core muscles,
Yeah.
you know, and the core muscles of me as a human being is that I have to believe that I am good enough.
Mm.
And I have to be able to walk around and trust that people can try to tell me who they think I am. Of course, I can believe that and take on board some of it, but I need to basically understand who I am and
Yeah.
hold on to that because the world will definitely tell me who they think I am.
Mhm, mhm. I love that core of our emotions. We have the core of our body, our physical body. And what is the core of our emotions, and how do we exercise that? How do we make it stronger? And it's by becoming more aware, by surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, by asking for help when you need it, and by loving yourself and being gracious and compassionate and nice. If you can't say compassionate, I'm not going to be compassionate with myself. I'm just going to be nice. Okay, then start with that. I'm just going to be nice. So I have a question to ask you, and this is a request from someone that I know who asked if I could talk about this on my podcast. And that is, what do you do when a friendship ends, and how do you navigate that, especially when you have common friends
That
in
is
group?
heartbreaking, heartbreaking, Mary. And yeah, um, when you have common friends, it's almost it's a bit like being in a relationship and that splitting up with your partner, and you've got this common friendship group, but if you go your separate ways, it's like it's like divvying up all the stuff in the house, isn't it? Who's gonna have the cat? Who's gonna have my books? Who's gonna have you know that special cushion? Friendships are friendships are very fulfilling, but friendships are not all of you. So you're quite right. There's going to be a division of who goes with who, and even down to your friends working out. Let's imagine it's me and you, Mary. Much as we love each other, we've broken up, and we have got a couple of friends in common. Our friends are going to have to make that call. Do I go with Mary or do I go with Joy? Very interesting. I can't be with both of them. Uh, Now, the person who has lost the friendship group is going to be devastated because it will tell you possibly that they never liked you in the first place or you weren't as special as the other person. And this is where, again, you have to work out, can I stand by myself? Who am I? Do I have the ability to rebuild my life? Were they, am I only here because of my friends? Can I rebuild? And I think there's going to be a period of just total grieving, Mary. They're going to grieve, and even with the friends that might take my side, there's still going to be something missing from the group because the group was, made up of like a square. It had four corners. Now it's just a triangle. We'll all experience that triangle feeling. We might not talk about it, but we all experience it. But the person that has left or chosen to like decide, I'm not going to make you guys fight over who's going to have the special handbag and who's going to have my book. I'm just going to leave because I have the ability to start again. And I took a bit of a gulp there, actually, Mary, because I started over again a few times, and it's kind of a scary place, isn't it?
Yeah.
But guess what? I'm still alive. And I have had friendship groups where I've split up with them, and they've had to take sides. I've also had friendship groups where it's just me and one other person and we split up. And that's been devastating. But I think we have to remember that human beings are very resilient. I worked with a 7-year-old back in the day, and no, she wasn't 7, she was going towards 10 actually. And she just said that human beings are very resilient, Joy. And I said, yes, actually, they are. We are very resilient. So once you've gotten over the fact that it's an ending, gotten over the fact that you're going to grieve for what used to be, you also have to recognize that you can move forward and that there will be a new beginning. And in a simplistic term, Mary, for every ending, there's a new beginning. Every beginning, there's a new ending. It's a circle.
Yeah.
But finding yourself again within that space and building yourself up and not making it mean too much about you. The labels again. I'm a bad person. I'm not wanted. Nobody loves me. Because breakups can trigger all of the things that you remember from your childhood. Childhood experiences of breaking up, childhood experiences of friendships and groups.
Yes. It's important to navigate that because it's just another type of relationship, and there's that whole levels of grief that we go through. And then finally, there's acceptance
Yes, thank you.
and the ability to look at yourself and understand that, to me, again, going back to this, is that things happen for your good and that you have to take it as something that is beneficial, even if you don't see it at the time in the moment, that there's something else coming. And I always say we can only see what's down the road. We can't see what's around the corner. We
Yeah.
can see what's in front of us. We maybe have some reference to what's behind us, depending on how our memories are and how we process them, but we can never see what's around the corner. So I like to think of it this way. And because sometimes people have a tendency to go in the negative and
Well,
they
yes,
go in
it's
the negative, and I say,
easy.
well, you have the ability to either go left or right. Let's say that the negative is on the left and the positive is on the right, however you want to see it, or maybe there's just one right turn. And I would like to think that what's happening around the corner is a good thing. So just like you have the ability to think a certain way, you also have the ability to think in a different way. You can do both things. So when it comes to that and endings and beginnings, maybe you turn the corner, there's a new beginning.
And, and
And
and this thing about positive thinking and negative thinking, Mary, I mean, me and you are quite positive people, but I have to accept that life is a bit like a coin. I always like the idea of a coin. There are two sides to the coin. So in order to accept the good, you also have to acknowledge that there might be the bad.
right.
That's it. So
Mhm.
when you can live with that concept, then you stop wanting it to be literally a one-sided coin. My name's Joy, for God's sake, Mary.
Yeah.
The world should be full of joy all the time and happiness, but I've experienced a lot of unhappiness, and I've had experienced a lot of grief, and about my son, and then I've had recent things to do with my parents, and so grief is the biggest um, opener, wakes you up to the fact that change happens, but that human beings can go through that. They can get through that. So friendships are a form of breakup. There is a breakup, you're grieving, but you have to work out how to come through it. I can tell yourself, I can get through this, because you can get through it. And it's a strengthening thing as well. It rebuilds you in a slightly different way. Hopefully, it doesn't make you too cynical and too, a desire to not have any friends again, because I will only get hurt. Because I'm
Mm.
looking at always the beliefs that we formulate from every experience that we have. I don't want you to think, wow, now that I've broken up with Mary, there's no point having any more friends because they'll only break your heart. But it could be a thought that I'm left with. It's a thought that I've been left with in romantic relationships. I'm never ever going to go out with another man again. Funnily enough, once you've gotten over that, you do,
Yeah.
you know. But it's teaching you a lot about you. Every incident that happens to you, Mary, and to me, is teaching me a lot about me. And the big thing is, what do I make this mean? So in therapy, the
Mhm.
cognitive behavioral side of therapy is, what do you make something mean? Because the event could happen to me and to Mary, but we'll both have a different interpretation of it. So
Yes.
what's going on? So what are you making it mean, Joy, that you and Mary have split up, that you'll never, ever have another friend? Well, of course I'll have more friends. Yeah, you will have more friends, Joy. But if you've decided that I'll never, ever have another friend, that's how it feels when we're at school and we
Yes.
break up with our
Yeah.
best friend. We're only at like 8 years old.
Mm.
I'm never, ever going to have another friend in the whole wide world. We're convinced. No one can tell us differently. But of course, we know that's not true.
Mhm. Mhm.
But moving on and learning to cope with change is also part of learning about anxiety and possibly depression. They're feelings, they're big feelings, but they are trying to tell you something. Anxiety is not a bad thing. It's trying to tell you that there's something that you're worried about. But when you learn that anxiety is just about the future, like you said, the left and the right, and that's wondering, oh, I wonder what's down the left. Oh, I wonder what's down the right. Actually, take one of them and a belief that you'll solve it. When I get there, I'll solve it. I'll figure it out. And there's a great lady called, was it Maria Forleo?
Yeah.
Forleo? Never
Mhm.
pronounced her name properly, but I loved her statement. It was such a simple statement that everything is figure outable.
Yes.
I thought, wow, what a great statement. And that
Mhm.
was passed down to her from her mum. So she grew up
Mhm.
with that kind of sense of like, doesn't matter what happens in a way, I can figure it out.
And that leads me to asking you the next question, which is sharing some insights and tips on building a strong support system and developing meaningful relationships.
Yeah. But we're building a strong support system. I mean, I think it happens anyway. You within reason. I'm not saying it happened. I'll take that back because some people are unfortunately not good at making friendships, and that's sad because we need to have human beings around us. I'd like to think they've got one person that they can, form a friendship with. But the reason why you want to have a group of people around you, or at least feel the love, invisible love of people around you, is it just keeps you strong and you don't feel as though you're on your own in this world. So yeah, whether it's friendships, romantic friendships, friends with anyone, a temporary friendship, someone you just met, down at the supermarket or the shop. It's human beings just like to make connections. I'm not so worried about having a big friendship group anymore, Mary. It used to be something that bothered me a lot because, of course, I had a thought that if you don't have any friends, Joy, then you must be a very sad person. So I've gotten over that one. And my my thought around friendship groups is that it's okay to have one or two people that you really like being around, Joy, and the others can be acquaintances. But you do need some contact, Joy. So make sure you have some friends that you can rely on every now and then. But I don't get too deep into friendship groups, but
Mhm.
the support around me, I know I need it.
Yes.
I'm not an island. I do need to have some feedback from people. Me and you talking today, I can feel the energy in that we've enlivened each other. So other human beings do give me something which I wouldn't get otherwise. Building the group is important. I think it's important to develop meaningful relationships, and there's lots of proof to say that human beings that have good relationships, it's much better for your health. It probably really alleviates your stress as well. So having good friendship groups is important. Having intimate relationships are important. When you're in a couple, you can live longer. Funnily enough, couples manage to live longer. So there's a lot around just having good, close relationships. I know they're hard. I think it's easier said than done, to be quite honest, Mary, because
Yeah.
we all want what we want and we're all very different and quite unique. And I always think are we really meant to meet somebody who's like a twin to us, or how does it work? Because I'm different to you, you're different to me, Mary. We have different ideas. How do we find that middle ground? But it's important for me to come home to someone that loves or cares for me.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. And I think human beings do need that.
Yeah.
But it's not always possible. So I don't want anyone who's on their own or who's single to feel bad about themselves. You know, fill your life with other people that, meet that need as well, to be cared for, to be loved, to be listened to feel as though you're valuable and that you exist in the world and someone cares about you, even if it's your dog.
Yes. Well, they say that when you have a dog, you're never alone.
And I haven't got any pets anymore,
Yeah.
Mary, but I must admit, I think about having a dog or a cat, and I think, yeah, I'm just such a selfish person now. I think I'd forget to feed them. Sorry, Mary.
I have 2. And they're both laying here by my feet.
Oh, beautiful.
They bring me so much joy and happiness and fun. So, what is next for Joy Langley? Tell us about what's coming down the pipeline for you, maybe this year, your aspirations. So, let's keep you accountable to the goals that you have for yourself because now we're putting it out there and it must happen.
Why not? Why not, Mary? Well, like I said, that thought I had when I was younger. My name is Joy. My middle name's Joy. I've got a first name. It's Karen, actually. My first name's Karen and my second name's Joy. Joy's become the name that I've used more often. I do still just want to alleviate, I suppose, suffering in the world and make people happy. I found that through using my therapeutic skills and my coaching skills. So it's about bringing joy to the world. I still want that to be my overriding banner. How I do that? Okay. I do talk to people and I coach people. I've got a podcast which I was determined to start at the end of last year, which I'm now restarting again to do. So who knows you? I might be turning the tables on you, Mary, and interviewing you soon. So the podcast will be there. I'm very much into LinkedIn and being on LinkedIn in terms of connecting with people is my favorite playground. So I meet lots of people there for business and for pleasure. I'll keep doing that. I also have an idea of having a jewelry line. I wear a lot of jewelry. Well, not wear it all, but I have a big collection, Mary, which you can't see. I've always thought I'd do that. I don't know if I'll do that this year, but a couple of years to come. But also a big fan of promoting good mental health and helping people to, I say, stay away from the exit door. And I say that because life can be grim and we can feel as though that's where we want to go. So if you do watch what I get up to online, every now and then I will talk a lot about mental health and prevention of suicide
Mhm.
because they are things that unfortunately have touched my life.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and for being that light and for your knowledge too, because you're not just speaking to speak. You're not just quoting quotes. You're talking from experience and you're talking from all of your training and all of that knowledge and wisdom that comes with living your own life, becoming the person who helps other people now create a better life for themselves and to shining the spotlight also on mental health and suicide prevention, which is something that is increasingly needed in this environment. And it almost makes you wonder, when is it going to stop? How can you pull people out of that state? How can you help them? How can you help them help themselves? And that's where people like you come in, people like me come
Yes,
in, and
absolutely.
continue to share. So I would love to maybe at some point later on talk a little bit more in depth on that. And
It's a big subject, Mary.
yes,
It's
it
huge,
is. Yes, it is.
huge.
So being that you are a professional, you can help me spread the word on that. I'm not a therapist, but it's something that is very near and dear to my heart as well. And I will love for you to join us again and to shed some light on that.
By all
Yeah.
means, by all means, I think that human beings have to embrace everything that they are. And there are some very natural things that happen in life. As they said, you're born, you die at the end. And I like to say in the middle, you live, Mary.
Yes.
So right now, me and you are living. Let's give it our best shot. Let's give it as much as we can. Because, yeah, at some point, we will not be here. So while we are here, what are we giving? What do we want to give? And they talk about legacy, what do you want to leave behind? But I'd like to think, when I leave the room, Mary, that people say good things about me. And if they do, then I've done my job.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, that's what it's all about. So thank you so much, Joy, for joining us today. I will have your information in the show notes for everybody to follow you, to check you out on LinkedIn and to see what you're up to, and also the link to your podcast. So make sure, everybody, that you are tapping into those show notes, that you read the information, don't just skim by it, and be sure to be following Ms. Joy Langley here, because she's just absolutely amazing and a light to the world. So thank you, Joy.
And I want to say thank you to you, Mary. You do some amazing work. You have a great energy about you, and you just love human beings. That comes across.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That is it for today, my friend. Thank you so much for being here on Get Intentional with Mary. And if you found this episode useful, as always, please share it, leave a review, and be sure to also follow Miss Joy Langley on LinkedIn. You will find more information on Joy in the podcast show notes. Have an amazing day.